What is going on, everybody? Nazdarachi here with 5-9 Gaming, hosting a video with my good friend Lethal Hit and Nalar. We have a potentially breaking piece of information to share with y'all. It is alleged. We have to stress that very heavily, that this is a rumor that came out about 5 to 7-ish hours as of the time of us recording this. But apparently, due to the commercial failure of Marvel's Avengers, SquareEnix is in talks to sell all of its Western branch assets and all the associated IPs to potentially Ubisoft, who seems to be their first interest or the first potential bid. Now, again, all of this is alleged information. It could end up going to Ubisoft, it could end up going to Microsoft, or they might not even be selling it, period. Again, this is coming from 4chan specifically and is just now starting to trickle out. We haven't even seen sources like IGN or Kotaku or anything like that pick up this information and do anything with it, which is why we wanted to report on it for you. So there are some pretty huge IPs affected by this potential exchange, including what you're seeing on the screen, Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, Just Cause. There's also a lot of other big ones, including Hitman, Life is Strange. The Avengers game itself and Crystal Dynamics is under a California development company, so that would be another one that's potentially under the chopping block with this whole exchange of assets. So Nalar and Lethal, I guess we'll start with Nalar. Just very quickly, we know that this is potentially being caused by Marvel Avengers' very low sales at $63 million. From a game player, from a gamer standpoint, but also from someone who's good at managing and exchanging money, what is your take on this exchange just after initially hearing this piece of news?
So what it screams to me is that Square Enix, the Western branches, were kind of in financial struggle because they put all their eggs in this Marvel Avengers basket. Because, I mean, they've got, you listed all those games, right? Hitman, Tomb Raider, those are like high profile games, but are they the biggest best selling games ever? I wouldn't say they are. They're very highly acclaimed and well known in the game community to be very good. But do they make them a ton of money? I would say no. So to me, they took this on because they figured, okay, we can utilize the IP of Avengers, which is the hottest IP right now, considering the MCU with Endgame making over $2 billion, the highest grossing movie of all time. You know, the MCU has been hot for the last like 5 to 10 years. So trying to capitalize on that IP must have cost them quite a bit, right? And then on top of that, they put the budget up there. I think the budget is closer to like 190, $200 million because they brought in really good voice actors. The modeling in this thing is pretty well fleshed out. So they went pretty high with it and made the assumption, hey, Avengers IP, high production value, we got to this will bring the people in. Well, based on what happened the last 2 months, no, it didn't. So, I mean, all those other things worked out, but, you know, lots of things which we can briefly touch about was, you know, endgame content was a little lacking, release schedule was a little weird. It just wasn't enough to keep players in and then bring new players in, which is also the other thing too, right? If you're a games of service, it's a revolving door of how many people can we keep? We're going to lose some people. And then how many new people can we get in to replace the ones we lost? So right now, no one's coming in and everyone's leaving out, and that's a bad sign.
Yeah, we actually have another article up on screen where they've lost about 96% of their player base since the start of the game. And that's very telling for two reasons. Like Nalar mentioned, the MCU is very, very huge. It's very popular. It has lots of eyes on it. And it is also the height of this whole hermit life coronavirus season of 2020 that just keeps on going and keeps on giving. And to have so many people stuck at home, arguably there's more people gaming right now, or at least aware of gaming and paying attention to it, than potentially ever before. And to have this much of a player loss during, again, this time where gaming is at a height of popularity is not a very good sign at all. As someone who actually played the game, we're not going to dive in it too much, but Nalar did mention like the game's structure, the way it plays out. is very lacking. The end game content, the amount of boss fights, like really for those that have seen or played anything in revolving around the game, the introductory scene on the bridge, the A-Day sequence, is probably the best looking and the most cinematic and fun mission that the game really throws at you. Other than that, fighting a couple of choice Marvel villains, there's not much meat to the meal. It's all potatoes and no steak, and that's rather unfortunate. It is in very much a spot like Destiny's found itself in at some point, or even better, Anthem. And whether they recover or not is a huge point of contention. Now, we do know that the big King Disney and the House of Mouse has historically not taken bad publicity very well. And we look to like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, for example, they were very quick to shut down that game's future and just end the development cycle over some bad press with the character models looking weird, the game not having a very strong initial reception, the developers kind of at odds with the community over the inclusion of X-Men and whatnot. So Disney shut that down really fast. And whether or not they do that with Avengers really depends on, I guess, some crucial time over the next 6 months where the developers really have to turn this around. But diverting away from the game specifically, Lethal, I know you mentioned that you're a fan of at least some of these franchises. So what is your take on the potential of Ubisoft picking up some popular franchises like Hitman, like Tomb Raider, Life is Strange? Did you play any of those? Did you be a fan of any of those? And do you think Ubisoft is where they belong, or do you think they potentially belong with someone else, like maybe Microsoft or their Game Pass? What's your take on that?
So I've played a couple of those games, and I played Life is Strange too. I thought that was a really good game. I played Hitman. I played a little bit of Hitman. I played Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Again, I thought they were good games, but I mean that's just my opinion, because clearly the sales for those games haven't been the greatest. And now you mix that in with what's potentially going to be a really bad flop for Marvel's Avengers. So it doesn't look too good. And it going to Ubisoft, for me personally, I don't know how I feel about Ubisoft. I'm not the biggest of a lot of their games. I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say that I know Assassin's Creed Valhalla is doing really good. I don't like the way they took the direction with Watch Dogs. Yes, I've played Watch Dogs 1. I played a little bit of Watch Dogs 2, but I lost my interest in Watch Dogs 3. The direction they went with that one, I don't know what they were doing with that one. But that's what I'm scared for, is them to acquire this game and take it and kind of mess with its direction or mess with what it could have gone in. And again, that could be a good thing. For all I know, maybe they would save it if that's the case. Like, that could be what it needed. For me personally, I would much rather a bigger company like Microsoft acquire this, because I feel like, with them and like with the Bethesda, and I just feel like they will have the team to kind of possibly, again, like turn this game around and make it a lot better for what it can be. And again, from someone who hasn't actually played the game at all, I wanted to be that person to come back in maybe like a couple months down the road after, I've heard so much so many problems with like multiplayer matchmaking. I've heard problems with, again, whatever pretty much you guys said. There's so many bugs and so many things they had to fix, content they, really need to work on, more bosses, more all that stuff. But seeing as how like it seems like they never really got to, but they never cared to kind of fix it, or whatever the reason may be, they just never did it. I look back and like they still haven't given me a reason to kind of want to get back into the game. And something I was looking at before too is like I was looking at their DLC characters, and I was looking at it and I was like, okay, what's coming up next? And it seems like right now they're drumming up some hype, I guess, for Kate Bishop. And as someone who's not big into like deep Marvel lore, I know some surface level stuff. I don't even know who Kate Bishop was. So for me, it's like that's not a character that I would even consider even caring to like even jump into the game for. I know Hawkeye's someone that probably I would have cared for, but Hawkeye doesn't seem to be coming out until 2021. Spider-Man is another one that's apparently not coming out until 2021. So it kind of brings it back for someone like myself who wants to, like, if I want to ever get into the game, if it never brought my interest to ever want to, like, if I had initial interest, but now, I kind of want to save it and come back into it, but they couldn't bring me even back into it. I couldn't imagine people who have been sitting there playing the game and, they probably got bored. I can see why the game, again, why it's got the reception it's kind of been getting. If they would have just started with X-Men, or I was just saying in general, if they would have just started with more iconic characters, that could have changed so much. Like, Jay should have just touched upon like Guardians of the Galaxy or something. I don't know. They could have. I feel like as big as Marvel is right now, we just had like Endgame. Like, I feel like if you had brought any of those characters in, I probably would have cared more. Doctor Strange, I don't know. Like, you bring it in Kate Bishop first, and then Hawkeye, and then 2021. Like, to me, like they did that in the wrong order.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The game definitely has a rocky future ahead of it. Hopefully, they are able, if this all goes through and Square Enix does sell, or even if they don't, again, stress that this is alleged information. We hope the best for these individual games. Like, I don't want any of these franchises to fail. Honestly, I don't want Square Enix to have to sell its assets just to get by. Hopefully, Crystal Dynamics can kind of do a Destiny level turnaround and regain the player base that they've lost. Like Lethal said, if they started hitting with some heavy hitters, like dropping some Wolverine, some Deadpool, it doesn't even have to be male characters. Like, we're not hating on Kate Bishop because she's a girl. Like, let me see Rogue, let me see Storm, let me see Jean Grey. Like, I would love to see them in this game. There's so many other iconic characters that would help breathe some life into this game, as long as they release with new stuff to do in the game at the same time. So there are a lot of factors that definitely contributed to this game not performing quite as we all had hoped, because we all wanted this to be a great game. I think a lot of corporate meddling during the development cycle and a lot of corporate desire for this game to have a lot of monetization going on in it. Those are probably some of the biggest offenders as to why this game failed to perform. And hopefully it does teach, not necessarily the developers, because they did a lot of hard work, but hopefully it teaches some of the big wigs in the corporate offices that less can be more. Like, you look at a game like God of War, or like Lethal had mentioned, even the Ragnarok that came out, that does have minimal levels of in-game purchases for Ragnarok. And God of War is just a straight up single player experiences. Those games performed massively well, and they don't have to follow such a rigid lifespan with content releases and games as a service. I mean, I'm not saying that all of those games are done poorly, but there's a fine line of corporatization and monetization that you have to tread when making a game like this to not disgust the majority of your player base. And I think they went a little bit too far with Avengers, especially seeing like the Verizon skins and all of the other corporate whoring that went on with this game. Again, I do hope they bring it back. Are there any other points that you wanted to bring up, Nalar, about the Reddit post specifically and this corporate exchange that might happen?
Well, just one last thing I wanted to bring up is that because they're being sold, or allegedly they're being sold to another party like Ubisoft, or potentially, like we're thinking, Microsoft, that doesn't necessarily mean the game will survive. I mean, I'm going to be the not the optimist here. I'm going to be the pessimist and say, like, there's a good chance that they're being sold because they need to get some money afloat. And whoever the new overlord is that looks at it and says, this is not going to work. Might as well cut our losses and just be done with it. So, I mean, I am going to say, yes, I hope it works out that way. But realistically speaking, if a good chunk of the reason that they're being sold is to recoup the losses of this property, then Overlord and Microsoft might be like, no, this ain't worth it. So go
Disney,
or Disney, whoever says it, they could just kibosh this entirely. So, which sucks because I mean I didn't play it. I thought it would be pretty cool, and like you said, they had good potential. Just needs some changes and needs some TLC, but that requires money. And if this is already burning cash at a rate that it can't recoup, then that might not happen.
Yeah, again, everything is up in the air. This is alleged. Again, for the third time, we just want to stress, we will follow up on this with everyone in the audience. So if you are wondering how this plays out, if it turns out it was fake, if it actually substantiates and turns into something, we'll, of course, keep you updated. We hope you do enjoy our deviations from gacha content, sometimes covering the greater gaming sphere. It's actually been quite enjoyable. Any other closing thoughts, Lethal, about how this game could maybe swing back in line and be more like a Marvel Ultimate Alliance or an X-Men Legends, or any other thoughts from you, Nalar, about anything, what they could do, what they should have done, or what we should do to close out this video? Anything before we wrap up?
Listen, they should have just brought in X-Men. They should have just did the X-Men. That's all I want to say. They should have just added in the X-Men. If they have to do one last thing to give it one last shot, you need to drop the X-Men right now. I feel like this game, it needed to go, like, when it came to like characters and whatnot, they needed to pick the characters that were going to impact with people or resonate with people the most. And I feel like, if you had plans to do X-Men and you were waiting, you should have done X-Men first. So hopefully, if they have one last thing they could do to bring it back, try to bring in the X-Men. Maybe that'll save it, because if not, then I don't know what's going to happen. Probably not good.
Yeah, they need to learn from the mistakes of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and the Marvel video game fandom, and do not slander the X-Men. The X-Men could be your tool to revival. Like, the video game community loves the X-Men, and we saw the Marvel devs slander them and tell them that Magneto or Wolverine was just a function of a character that already exists in the game. And they seriously regretted that. So definitely don't sleep on them.
Nothing else from me. Just, follow us. We'll follow up on this, whether this was a rumor that's debunked or it actually goes through, and we'll give you our thoughts and details on that. So definitely follow us here on the 5-9 Gaming channel. Appreciate everybody here.
Yeah, with that being said, if you are new around here, consider following not only our Twitch, but subscribing here on YouTube, hitting the notification bell, and check out our Twitter as well. We're definitely going to be fighting to be a force on the internet to keep y'all entertained and informed. We sincerely appreciate all of y'all's support. We've had a pretty overwhelming start here, and we look to keep that going. So if you are already a member or a fan, or not, consider hitting the like button as well. Help spread the video out on YouTube so more people can get some eyes on it. And until the next upload, for Lethal Hit, Nazdarachi, and Nalar, this is 5-9 Gaming, keeping you informed, entertained, and we're signing out. So we'll see you again real soon. Peace out, everybody.